I'm joined today by Rob O'Halloran, who is the managing partner of BDS Yarmouth Choate, an executive search firm that's headquartered in Atlanta, which does a lot of high-level searches in the financial services industry. And as I've gotten to know Rob, one of the things that I was interested in was inviting him to talk about that, because there are a lot of bankers that I work with who really do aspire to the C level in community and regional banks. And Rob personally has a tremendous amount of experience in that area, and I thought it would be interesting to get his point of view. So Rob, welcome to this NedTalks.
Thank you, Ned. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking with you.
So let's start with something that is almost the way a lot of conversations that you have probably start. What if you're a banker and you get a call from someone like you, maybe out of the blue, maybe you've never met with this individual? How should the individual approach that?
Well, a very good question. Typically, if a banker, if a candidate hasn't spoken with the recruiter before, chances are that recruiter is contacting them regarding an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And you can learn a lot by listening, so hear them out. Measure, gauge things such as how prepared are they, mm-hmm. with real details, not just the marketing page from the About Us section of the client's website, but data points, metrics, performance. How familiar are they with the leadership bios of and the experience of the executive leadership team? What is that recruiter's history with the executive leadership team? Mm-hmm. Additionally, what does the recruiter know not only about the search, but also other strategic initiatives at the bank? Mm-hmm. Really want to gauge holistically what that recruiter does and does not know. Mm-hmm. Another very effective way at gauging the recruiter and just how much time you should spend with them on the opportunity they're representing is measure, gauge how candid they are. You want to really mm-hmm. hear from that recruiter what the strengths and weaknesses are of their client employer. Mm-hmm. I know some client banks might bristle at hearing they have weaknesses, but it's natural. No person is perfect. No client, no business entity is perfect. So it's really talking about what the client does well, what they need to do better. Those sorts of strengths and weaknesses are absolutely crucial to get out. And, the recruiter should encourage you to ask all the questions you want. They mm-hmm. should encourage you that if at the point the conversations progress with the client, if they do, then the recruiter should encourage you to ask the client any question you want, not just the easy ones, but the difficult ones. And it's all about that gap analysis, determining what both sides know, what they don't know. Mm-hmm. And the earlier in the process you do that, the better.
That's really sound advice. So when you're having this conversation, we're flipping it around a little bit here. How do you figure out whether an individual is going to be a good fit for your client?
Oh, there are a lot of ways, and it's never done in one conversation. It's done throughout a process. Naturally, some candidates we know and know extremely well, and if we're doing what we should be doing for the client, we're talking to a lot more candidates that we don't know. And it's really, determining tone, pace, temperament. Organizations, not only the people that work at a client, well, the organizations themselves have cultural tone, pace, temperament, mm-hmm. and it's some are growth. Foot on the gas, accelerating 200 miles an hour. Others are slow and steady, wins the race, the hare and the tortoise story. And yet others, with some client banks, it's dividend preservation is what determines their forward path. And it's not to say that if a candidate fits or has predominantly more experience with one of those types of banks than the other, they might fit a client with a different agenda. But
Mhm.
it's really just getting to know the respective strengths and the growth opportunities of both sides. And, I think, candidates understandably, they get excited about a new story. But it's learning, all right, what are the exciting parts, and those parts that might be blind spots, either with the candidate and their skill set, or the client and their opportunity, their strengths of their bank. It's really finding where those intersect and complement one another, and determining, all right, do both sides, do they know that? So they're finding that out during the interview process and not post onboarding. So a lot can be determined in terms of fit, through conversations such as that, the real hard, honest look and drill down where people really get talking about those things. And we find consistently encouraging the candidate to have those conversations, the client that those conversations need to be had, so that people know, they know what they know.
Mhm.
They know there are things they don't know, but it's human nature. No one is all knowing. So really finding out and admitting and working on those things that we don't know, that's crucial through the process.
How important is the experience level of the candidate as opposed to their education, if I can use that term?
Oh, experience is undoubtedly of crucial importance. Just how well have they done what they've done, and have they done it with, have they progressed through their career? Do they have forward momentum? The industry has changed so much that, a person might appear to have 30 years of experience, but a candidate might have stagnated and stalled for the last 10 years.
Mhm.
Or maybe they, repeated the same bad year 5, 7, 15 times. I mean, that happens. As we've seen in this industry, in most industries, bad things happen to good people. So, experience is undoubtedly important, and forward momentum and gaining additional skills, knowledge, experience is crucial. But education, especially when a professional is earlier in their career, the more robust their educational experience, well, they rely on that until their career reaches the point where they either equal or exceed in education their professional experience. And there's so much parity, between educational institutions these days. I guess unless you're a quant, and quants get academic about their academics,
Mhm.
and MBAs are omnipresent. So, I think anything a person can do to, including with certifications, a
Mhm.
CTP, a CFA, a CRCM, a CRC,
Mhm.
any of those, along with state banking association schools, graduate certificates, graduate schools of banking, those opportunities will, serve individuals highly throughout their entire career.
Mhm. So there's been a lot of discussion recently about the importance of what some people call soft skills. And I don't want to prejudge your answer, but when you look at the C-level, imagine somebody that aspires to be the CEO of a community bank. What are the skills that you think are most important?
First and foremost, humility.
Mm.
And humility just equates to, if a person is humble, and none of us are perfect, but if an individual is humble, it just equates to strengths in so many other areas: collaboration, empathy. That's probably the single most important attribute. Just so much can be accomplished with a person who has humility, and knows that there are things they don't know, knows there are things that they need to learn, they want to learn, and someone knowing that, regardless of those around them, there is something to learn, and that those around them have knowledge that they can share.
Mhm. Yeah, very important. One of the things I'm curious about, because I sometimes will look at a banker's resume or hear about all the places that the banker has been, And I wonder whether when you're evaluating a candidate, are you trying to assess whether somebody's going to stick around or jump to another opportunity that presents itself?
That is, it's the $1 million question, permanency. And the issue now is, and now, yes, we'll see resumes in which candidates will have multiple short stays.
Mhm.
And it's our responsibility to determine, is that person just simply a victim of bad things happening to a really good individual, a talented professional? Or is it a series and habit of making, decisions without all of the information? Uh, you know, Permanency these days gets really difficult because, there are so many external factors. I mean, take, for instance, the average tenure within banking over the last 20 years has now been reduced on average to 3 to 5 years.
Mm.
And that's often being generous to say 3 to 5 years. And clients, employers, banks change initiatives. They might go from being slow and steady wins the race, as I mentioned before, to foot on the gas and growth for the sake of growth. They have analysts to appease. It might be, a whole series of factors. I think bankers are really pretty skilled at predicting the future, but I think preparing for it proves to be brutally difficult. So, case in point, look at the deposit crisis that so many banks are faced with. Aside from changes like that, there was the pandemic. There's mergers, there are recessions. Those sorts of things are out of the control of the individual employee. So I think determining whether or not a candidate's going to stay, you need to factor in some of those other points, which aren't always, you can't predict them. No one has a crystal ball, but you need to factor in those things that you can. How will the candidate respond to them?
Mhm.
But also, employers, a lot of employers kind of historically treated hiring as if it were a feudal system, that candidates were often lucky just to have a job.
Mm.
And, with the scarcity of talent these days, because the industry hasn't really created new bankers in over 2 decades. I know some banks have had training programs, but they've been significantly reduced in quantity and the number of trainees, graduates they produce. But, there has to be balance where retention, permanency, it's as much the responsibility, of course, of the employer as it is the candidate.
So that raises in my mind a question. One of the things that a lot of bank management emphasizes is engagement in the broader community. They're looking for people to be active. What kinds of experiences do you think a young banker, for example, ought to seek out to broaden his or her skill set?
I think younger bankers need to focus on being a leader rather than a manager. And I think we all know the difference between those. And the industry has, historically, it's had more managers than leaders. Not to say that managers were inferior as professionals, it's just a cultural shift. And, with younger bankers seeking out leadership opportunities, there are just so many incredible resources. I mean, first and foremost, they should go to their supervisor and see what opportunities are available through that conversation.
Mhm.
And if their supervisor isn't in a position to help, or might seem as if they can't help, and I would suggest to that person, maybe very tactfully, diplomatically, respectfully, try to find those opportunities to do more, to learn more, maybe participate in projects, forums, committees elsewhere in the bank. But concurrently with looking inside their respective institution, oh my, state banking associations again are wonderful sources of committees, forums, that people can participate in. And then there's, the oh goodness, the RMA, the ABA,
Mhm.
the ACG. There are just so many avenues out there where, there are banking. The best part about the industry is its people.
Mhm.
some of the best individuals I've met in my life, personally or professionally, are bankers. And with these different avenues, there are just so many bankers that are wanting to share, wanting to learn, wanting to collaborate. So if you can't find what you need at any given point in terms of gaining additional skills, whether they be technical or leadership, there's a lot of opportunities outside the bank. And I think probably even more important, or at a minimum of equal importance to different associations and state banking associations, is the fact that younger bankers really need to find mentors. They need to find coaches. And because the banking industry has changed so much, it's highly unlikely that any one individual will provide the career perspective, the advice that a young professional or even a mid-career professional will need. Banking has become, it's pushed its people, almost regardless of bank size, to become highly specialized. So, when it comes to the mentor coach discussion, I would suggest candidates almost look at it as a personal advisory board. Different people of different generations, and not just if a person's in the P&L space of banking, fee and income producing, customer touching, find somebody in the risk regulatory side, find someone in operations, find someone in technology. You want to get different perspectives, but one of the mistakes I see individuals make when they select a mentor is they do so for emotional reasons. Maybe it's something as simple as, they pick a person because that individual was nice to them. Well, of course, it's not, you want a mentor to be nice, but you want them to be, additive to your professional growth. So really give some thought when selecting a mentor. You want to ensure that that person has had forward momentum in their career and that they haven't retired in position.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And I particularly think the suggestion that people think about developing their own personal board of advisors is very valuable, because when you think about the challenges that any professional faces, it's good to be able to tap into a variety of experience. This has been really fascinating, Rob, and I think people will find it valuable. Do you have any other words of wisdom for people that aspire to leadership positions in the banking industry?
The banking industry is, yes, it has its challenges, but every industry does. I think while the talking heads in the media, they like to pick on banking. Picking on banking has somewhat become a national sport over the last 10 years or longer, really. Don't believe it. The industry is filled with some truly outstanding people. There are great career opportunities, yes, because of mergers, acquisitions, consolidations. Some banking professionals may find themselves needing to reinvent their careers, but those opportunities and training it is out there. But I would tell any candidate to spend some time on career planning, even if it's just a couple of months, a couple of hours a month. I see so many candidates who probably spend more time on vacation planning than career planning. And career planning is more important now than probably ever before, given how much the industry has changed and how quickly it continues to change. And, I think to sum it all up, when they're doing these sorts of things, really be true to themselves. And look at what excites them, look at their strengths, their weaknesses, and find ways to work on those and find their passions. I think that would be the best advice I could give any banker.
Well, Rob, thank you very much. I appreciate the wisdom that you've shared with us and with the bankers in this Ned Talk. And I know that going forward, there'll be a lot of bankers who will benefit from the perspective. So thank you for being with us today.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you, Ned.